Okay, so heads, I go easy on Apple. Tails, I go hard on Apple. All right, let's see what goes on. All right, heads, so I go hard on Apple. Perfect, let's go. So as we all know, Apple's been in a super strange situation, okay? And, we had super strange statements from Apple this whole entire year. I think ever since the iPhone XR was released, Apple's just been making super weird statements. I don't even know where they come up with these things. First of all, they stated that the iPhone XR was the best-selling iPhone since its release, which honestly, it makes perfect sense. Why? Because usually newer iPhones tend to sell better than older ones, even though the iPhone XS and XS Max aren't even older, technically speaking. They just were released before, and they're much better than the iPhone XR. And I guess they weren't really lying, but that really wasn't even much of a statement because the iPhone XR wasn't even selling well anyway. And then with their whole iPad bending situation with their iPad Pros, they said the bending was normal. Now, I don't know whether that statement was true or not. The Verge was being really weird about it. But regardless, that one statement really changed a lot of people's outlook on that company. And ever since then, I think the reputation of Apple's really been going down. And today we got some crazy thing of, I don't even know what prompted. Well, I know why they did it, but we got this public letter from Tim Cook himself to the investors of Apple, and it's kind of like updating them the status of the company. Now, they lay out a lot of important information for the first quarter of 2019, and I guess going on forward and forward. Now, I'll blast some of the letter up on the screen right now. Now, they kind of say some facts, okay? They say there's $84 billion of revenue currently, or that's coming in for the first quarter. Operating expenses about 38%. Other income is supposed to be about $550 million, which is good, I guess. Maybe it's lower or higher from other years, I don't know. And the tax rate is about 16.5%. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that they are profitable of this quarter for sure, and that's a good thing, kind of. So that's really the only really good news, I would say. But literally a couple lines down, they state that's something so crazy, okay? And they say, based on these estimates, our revenue will be lower than our original guidance for the quarter. So pretty much what they're saying is that they're making less money than they thought, which honestly, as a company, is not a good thing. But for us consumers, for people who want change within a company, that's pretty important. And, I'm about to go ham in a minute, but it's just pretty much laying out the groundwork. I think they were basically saying what they were saying is they're not making as much money as they thought they were, especially coming from the iPhone sales. Now, according to their documents, the iPhones make up about 60% of the sales. I don't know if it's this document or if it's a different thing I saw, but about 60% of the revenue that's coming in is coming straight from the iPhones, from the hardware sales themselves. So the iPhone XR is a pretty big component of that, but they also are still selling the iPhone 8, 8 Pluses, 7s, and 7 Pluses as well. So there's still a lot of iPhones, quite a bit of iPhones that they're still selling within the stores. Now, for the investor side as well, that's a pretty bad thing as well. They don't really want to be hearing this. They don't want to hear that iPhone sales are going down and they're making less revenue than they thought because they want to make money. They don't want to lose money. But like I said, it's pretty much a good thing for everyone else, on the investing side, horrible. But for us consumers, it's going to really push Apple to kind of change a lot within their company. They're going to go and start pushing more boundaries and pushing their devices in order for them to push more sales, because they know that they can't just keep increasing prices to make us, just be loyal. Just because we're loyal to a company doesn't mean we're going to spend out $750 for a phone like this, or over $1,000 for an iPhone 10 or a 10s, a new one, or whatever, than when the prices were. It's crazy stuff. Now, that's that aspect of it, right? And I kept reading down, and Tim Cook, man, the guy himself, he just keeps saying one dumb thing after another dumb thing. I don't know where he's coming up with this thing, and I know why he's saying this. And he says everything, before I even read anything, I'm going to preface this. He says everything in order to save face, all right? I don't even think he believes what he's saying. I think he's saying it just to make himself look better and make Apple look better in front of the investors, honestly. So I don't really think he means what he says, but he pretty much blames the reason for the less revenue and the reason revenue is down on the crazy new stupid things, like the crazy new upgrades, and they blame it on not even the things that were actually relevant. So they didn't blame it because there wasn't really a huge upgrade. They didn't blame because the iPhones were already super expensive and they just increased the prices even more. And they didn't really change the iPhones that much, but he didn't really discuss that here. He says because of the date the iPhones were released, that's the first thing. He says, this is the quote unquote, he says, first, we knew the different timing of our iPhone's launches would affect our year-over-year compares. Our top models, iPhone XS and XS Max, shipped in quarter 4 of 2018, placing the channel fill and early sales in that quarter, whereas last year, iPhone X shipped in quarter 1 of 2018, placing the channel fill and early sales in the December quarter. We knew this would create a difficult compare for quarter 1 2019, and this played out broadly in line with our expectations. Now I hate hating on Tim Cook, okay? I made that whole video talking about, literally like a week ago, I said, stop hating on Tim Cook, but man, I think I need to delete that video now. Just kidding. Don't hate on him. He's just a guy. He's trying to do what's best for his company, I guess. But the way I read this statement, okay, it seems to me that Tim Cook truly believes that the reason the revenue is down is because of the timing of their release date and whether that fits into the quarter or not. Now, that might have a little bit to do with it for sure, okay? Now, I don't know Apple's income statements. I'm not their accountants. I don't know anything about them besides what I see and read online. But what I'm assuming is that they think that because of their timing of their releases, that's the reason why iPhones aren't really doing that well. So they were hoping that the iPhones, I guess, were going to be sold in the first quarter of 2019 or something like that, whatever they wanted to do. Or at least they thought the iPhones would continue to sell better throughout the months and months as they usually do towards the end of the year and towards the end of the next fiscal year. But they were completely wrong, mostly because of the pricing and because the new iPhones just weren't that much of an upgrade. I mean, even if you have an iPhone 7 Plus, honestly, I wouldn't even recommend upgrading to an iPhone XS or XS Max. I would probably recommend getting an iPhone 10 because it's even cheaper than an iPhone XR in the used market. But another thing to mention is that if Apple made an awesome product, if they made something that was truly remarkable and a huge upgrade, then people would continue to go and buy it. I mean, look at the AirPods. Those things were released in 2016 and people are still buying them, and obviously even they were still trending like on Twitter and everywhere, just like during Christmas. Now, going on with the letter, I found something extremely crazy, okay? I saw the iPhone XS mentioned, the XS Max. I saw the Apple Watch Series 4 mentioned, and I might have seen the iPad mentioned here and there. But what I didn't see is the iPhone XR mentioned one time. I didn't see the iPhone XR mentioned one time in that whole entire letter that Tim Cook pushed out. So I beg the question, why was that not mentioned, you know? This was supposed to be like the craziest new like feat of engineering and everything, liquid retina display, all this crazy stuff. Why was this not mentioned, you know? The sales for this thing aren't doing that well either. But surprisingly, they did not mention this. They mentioned the XS and XS Max, but not the iPhone XR, which I found really, really weird. Even though they ran tons of promotions for the iPhone XR and all these different things, I figured Tim Cook would at least mention it one time, but he didn't. Out of everything, Apple states something else extremely weird. I don't know why they did it. They blame every other thing about why people aren't upgrading to their newer iPhones other than the main reasons and the actual reasons of why people aren't actually upgrading. And the iPhone XR should have been better, okay? That's the main thing. But this is what they actually say, okay? Quote unquote, iPhone upgrades also were not as strong as we thought they would be. While macroeconomic challenges in some markets, I don't know why they made these, were a key contributor to this trend, we believe there are other factors broadly impacting our iPhone performance, including consumers adapting to a world with fewer carrier subsidies, US dollar strength related price increases, and some customers taking advantage of significantly reduced pricing for iPhone battery replacements, okay? Let me break this down for you, okay? The first part might have some truth to it, where they say that consumers adapting to a world with fewer carrier subsidies. Yes, that has some truth to it, I'm not gonna lie, because they don't sell phones for like on contract prices. You know, there used to be like, you pay like $10 for a phone, you just kind of just go with that. They don't do that anymore, but they do allow you to pay for the phone per month for the whole entire life of the phone, for the life of the contract. So for 2 years, you're paying like whatever, $30, $40 for the phone. But for most of the time, you're paying outright like $750 for this phone, $1,000 for the XS, and even more for the XS Max. But they say they're getting adapted to a world of fewer carrier subsidies, so I feel like that would be a good thing. But I kind of see what they're saying there, so I'll just leave that at that. They say the US dollar strength related price increases, so what that means is so that, yes, that kind of makes sense too, but that's not even the main reason. Then they say the dumbest thing at the end. They say they saved the best for last, honestly. They say because the iPhone battery replacement program that they were offering, because people were taking advantage of that, people stopped upgrading their phones as much. Now, that is honestly the dumbest thing they ever said. First of all, the only reason they even did that was because the iPhone 6s, if you remember, one person found out once they replaced their battery on their iPhone 6s, they found out that their phone was actually much faster once they replaced the battery, and they were wondering what the reason was and all that stuff. They found out that within iOS 11 at the time, they were throttling the software to where if the battery health degraded, they would actually go lower the performance of the phone, which is, you know, a kind of a feature if you think about it, but they didn't tell anybody and they were just kind of keeping it a secret. So people's phones were getting slower and they molded that into a statement of like, oh, we were trying to protect your phone, this and that. And that ever since then, I've been pretty much like kind of hesitant about everything Apple's ever done since then, because I knew at the time they were doing basically everything for money. And this letter kind of signifies that. So they offered that battery replacement program for the $29 mark, which I brought up a couple times this year in the Still Worth It videos I've done, as kind of a rebuttal and it's kind of like a sorry and apology that we did that. So here we're offering this type of discount. So if you replace your battery, take advantage of it and you can go and get your battery replaced, and then I guess we'll all be good. You don't have to worry about it. Now you can actually turn that off within settings, but still, that's kind of the dumbest thing ever. So you can't just go and offer something as a rebuttal and apology and then later say that that was the reason why the phones were doing bad. Well, you shouldn't have done that first thing in the first place, and then the second thing wouldn't happen, resulting in even fewer sales later on in the year. Like, you should have never done the first thing to begin with, which caused the main problem. So that's like another lesson learned for you. Don't be sneaky in the future. That's it. But the main reason and the main thing they didn't talk about, or Tim Cook didn't talk about in this whole entire letter, is the actual reason why people are not upgrading. Me, I'm an actual consumer. I actually go out and I buy all these phones. I wasn't given these phones. Apple didn't sponsor any videos. I have to actually go out, spend my own money on these things because I truly like Apple. I actually like them as a company. I owe a lot to them. I get a lot of views when I talk about them. I have nothing against them personally, but Apple's one of my favorite companies. I want to see them succeed. I want to buy better Apple products. I don't want to buy something, that I'm not even going to use. I'm going to buy it anyway, but I want to be able to recommend things to people, and I want to actually use, I have this, I don't use it. I just use it for the videos. I still use a phone that came out last year because the one that came out this year still isn't as good, and the newer ones that were even better ones aren't even worth the money. So Apple pretty much stated all the reasons as to why they kind of messed up, but they didn't really explain. They kind of molded all those reasons into a way that would save face for them, but they didn't really address the main issues as to why people aren't upgrading. That's the lack of innovation and the increase of prices. That's it. They're not upgrading their phones as much. They're not making crazy improvements, and they're also increasing the prices. All those things, if they fix those two things, people will start buying more iPhones. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who currently own an iPhone 6s, who currently own an iPhone 7 Plus, maybe even an iPhone 8 Plus coming up next year. They want to buy a newer phone. They want to buy a better phone, but they don't want to spend the crazy amounts of money for it. They don't want the lack of Touch ID. They want to maintain all their features. They want the dual camera sensors. They want everything, but they just want the lower prices. That's it. And I think this year, Apple's going to do one of two things. They're either going to innovate or they're not going to innovate. Those are the two things I see. They're definitely not going to lower the prices. That's not going to happen at all, not by a long shot. And I'm going to be realistic. They've stated in this letter everything but that. So I don't think they're going to go and lower the prices in this letter. They didn't state that one time. They didn't say the heightening of increase of prices or anything like that. They didn't mention anything like that. And according to what other people have said too, I don't think they're actually going to lower the prices this year. I think we need to get used to that pricing. That's completely stupid. I know I hate it, but if I'm being realistic, I don't think they're going to lower the prices. But I think they're going to go review everything that they've done this year and see what the failures they've done and go and innovate even more. At least that's what I'm hoping. Now again, I could be totally wrong and they could just go release another iPhone that looks exactly like the iPhone 10 released in 2017 and make absolutely no improvements, and that's a possibility too. But I really do think that this year they're going to have to innovate, or they're going to probably end up like Nokia, kings at one point, and then they ended up just failing because they just didn't innovate as much. I think that's where I'm going to end it off, man. And I really hope they do better this year. I want a better iPhone. I don't mind spending money if I get a better product. And on top of that, I want to be excited about a product. I want to go make tons of videos about products, which I already do, but I want to be excited for them. I don't just want to sit around and just be like, oh yeah, it has a camera, it has this, it has that. I want to talk about something newer in a phone. And if Apple actually doesn't go out and innovate as much as they should, they're going to end up hurting their company a lot more this year than they did last year. So that's where I'm going to end it off. If you guys have any questions or any rebuttals or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. I got super heated in this video, but that's good. Sometimes you gotta get heated. But check out the links in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I would really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out, till then.